Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett, joined, as always, by Jocelyn, and also returning to the show, you know him, you love him, Regiskillbin. Welcome back.
Hooray!
Thanks for coming back, man.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here.
It feels like just yesterday, not only were we able to leave our homes, but we were also in California seeing all the stuff we weren't able to talk about until basically today. Well, I guess last week. But.
Yeah, little did we know at the time.
yeah. You reminded me of my epic fail at the breakfast buffet line before the show.
It's the highlight of my 2020 so far. Not that there's been a lot of highlights, but that was the highlight of my 2020. I'll let you share the story because I'll mess it up.
So apparently I never told the story on the show, and it came up while we were setting up for the podcast. But so we get to the summit for when they were going to show us Demon Hunter and Ashes of Outland and all that jazz. And they were like, here's a breakfast buffet line. Go, serve yourself. And it, by the way, was most most SoCal breakfast I've ever seen in my life. If it was a bread product, it was multigrain and everything else was like chia seed something. I didn't understand anything that was in front of me. So I go, yogurt. I know yogurt. I understand yogurt. It's got granola on top. I'm going for it. And they had, it was really nice setup. It kind of looked like a tavern. Everything was like on barrels and, it was themed. Great stuff. And I go to grab a yogurt and it was a tray on top of a pedestal. And
I love how Regis is already laughing. Like for the audio listeners, like you're missing out.
All right. I promise it's Hearthstone related. I reach for like the closest yogurt to me. I grab it, and the pedestal that this tray of yogurt in glass mason jars, by the way, was sitting on, the pedestal was much skinnier and smaller and central to the tray that was sitting on top of it. So the one mason jar I grabbed, all of the other yogurts were in the back. This was the last mason jar keeping this thing balanced, and the whole tray just slides the F back, and all these glass mason jar, quite a few of them, fell down and just shattered on the floor. And all I hear, and I'm just staring in disbelief, and the only thing that breaks me out of this trance is Brian Kibler standing beside me going, "Well, that's hilarious." And that was my entrance to the summit. Out there in
oh my god, that was
California.
The first morning, so you hadn't even made
it was only one day, Jocelyn. It was the only morning.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrendously embarrassing, and then I just took my mason jar of yogurt over to Regis and was like, "Man, this always happens to me."
That's a great way to start. Great first impression. To paint the visual a little better, it was as if like a pizza box was sitting on a shot glass. And, it was counterbalanced across. He takes the one off the pizza box, just goes flying off the shot glass. And, of course, glass everywhere. It was something else. That's like you did it, Garrett.
Yep. One of the wait staff was even...
like full-on glass shattering.
Glass shattered. People swarming in to clean it up.
It's Sharon's like video or it didn't happen. Man, I wish we were allowed to take video. I would have been perfectly okay with that being committed to internet memory because it was so. In retrospect, I find it hilarious, but I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed.
I'm glad you didn't get kicked out. You could have missed out on all the Demon Hunter action.
That would have been great. Mr. Blizzard himself would have come out and been like, "Who's that guy? Where's he from? The Angry Chicken?"
Standing outside the window with a single tear running down your face, looking inside, hearing us all cheering, and
that would have been great. Would have been great. I've been craving yogurt ever since. So, anyways, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Angry Chicken. We got so much stuff to talk about. We literally, don't expect it. We literally cannot talk about every card. Too many cards have been revealed. The entire set of Ashes of Outland has been revealed. I can see the
week.
The terror.
1 week. They finally did it.
if you're audio listeners, you just go to YouTube right now and look at the fear in Regiskillbin's eyes as he thinks about how many cards he needs to get through.
I reviewed 62 cards today already. Like my video is already out, but I think it's 62 total. Yeah, it was crazy.
Man, I have so much respect for you, man. You're like such a quick turnaround with your card review videos, and they're like well made.
What do you mean? He's a huge slacker. He's not even half done yet. Come on.
No, I'm done. No, I did all of the ones revealed today, all 62 today. The other ones were already done. The first 70 have been done already.
Come on.
But the final 62 in one day, it was, man. I'm barely alive, to say the least. If I fall asleep during the podcast, forgive me. It's only fitting.
Well, we'll send an internet poke, a very hygienic internet poke over to wake you up, to wake you up. So we're gonna highlight some really interesting themes that are found across multiple classes in Hearthstone today. But before we get to that, there's like so much Hearthstone going on. We weren't really sure where to start, but we figured we should definitely talk about things like Masters Tour Las Vegas and whatnot at the top of the show before we get into talking about new things that were revealed from Ashes of Outland. So if you are one of the folks that watches this on VOD after the fact and you are worried about esports spoilers, you should probably jump ahead about 10 minutes. That's probably a safe amount of time, but also, I'm going to let you know if you go too far, you're going to miss a giveaway announcement. So be careful.
Spoilers.
Yeah. There's some rad stuff to give away on today's episode. But yeah, so Masters Tour Las Vegas / Masters Tour on the online edition finally happened this past week. I mean, they were having such a terrible time with the whole coronavirus situation, which started what feels like a lifetime ago. With moving it out of Indonesia and to Los Angeles. But yeah, so Blytja winning 2 Master Tours in a row is what happened here.
I think it's actually worth pointing out too that these are the Masters Tour that have the full like online qualifications. So these actually have a lot more players than the previous events that we had in previous years. There were 346 players at this one. I think the previous one that he won was around the same. It was kind of just over 300 participants, which is insane. Absolutely insane. So he went through 9 rounds of Swiss in both of those tournaments, and then this single elimination top 8 in both those tournaments, and came out on top twice in a row. Like, this is like Hunter Ace levels of awesome.
Consistency.
He won two Masters Tours in a row. I can't even win 2 games in a row. I totally don't understand it.
Oh, that new ladder system's
really
gonna
incredible. Hurt. Oh, I'm worried about it. We'll see. It's actually crazy because it's only player skill in games, right? But it's something about he must have some kind of deck building advantage or lineup advantage that I don't certainly understand or see. It's well beyond me, but that kind of consistency is just absurd. I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah, and I think it's a little easy to maybe put too much weight on like Holy Wrath Paladin not quite bringing home the bacon too, because like you said, there's something. It still comes down to Blytja, right? There's something there, and clearly there's consistency happening as well. So it was interesting for sure. Also, I just want to like shout out the esports team because I can't imagine that this was an easy thing to pull off, and like. They made it happen. Like the production wasn't what we're used to by any means, but we got to see freaking high level Hearthstone still happen. We still got to follow these storylines. I was just happy to see it. So I just wanted to give a little hat tip to anyone that actually worked this event and actually got it off the ground, because like, I don't know. I just feel I can just imagine myself in that. I've worked events before, and this is so beyond, I think, what anyone was expecting to have to deal with in terms of hardships. So I was just stoked to see it happen. I was really happy that we got all the way through to the finals, and for the most part, tech worked out.
The finals were great to watch too. There was the one moment where Blythe was down 2-0, and it was like literally the 1 in 4 chance or something of the Holy Wrath. And it was like, gotta go for it. And you're just sitting there like all your tournament hopes are hanging on whether or not this hits you for lethal damage. And then it hits you for 2 and you're like, oh, phew, okay, I win. And then he went back and got his 3 in a row. And it was like, oh, there were a couple of moments like that because of just kind of the nature of Holy Wrath Paladin, right? You get to a certain point where like you go for it or you lose. So you go for it and everyone's just like, oh my God. So yeah, it was a fun tournament to watch.
Yeah, it gets to that point sometimes, for sure.
How do you guys feel about it being on YouTube versus Twitch? I don't know if this is something you discussed on the podcast previously or not. Or
we talked about it. We talked about it a few times. Joss, you hate it, and I am indifferent because I already watch some live things on YouTube. And as a matter of fact, I almost forgot about the reveal stream today, and I just happened to be on YouTube, and it had like a before it went live, as if it was a video. This is the thing that happens on YouTube, is like coming. It'll say like coming up, but it's kind of hard to see that. It just shows up in results as if it's a video you can watch right this moment. And that actually worked. Like I queued it up and I was like just waiting for it to start. And so I suddenly heard like Hearthstone music. I'm like, all right, time to watch the reveal stream. So for me, I don't mind it. I know the numbers still aren't looking as good as they ever looked on Twitch. But in terms of my own just use from home, and as someone who honestly consumed a lot of Hearthstone esports after the fact in VOD form already, I was already consuming most of my Hearthstone esports on YouTube.
Right. And you know, I'm never on YouTube. It's not my platform of choice. So I know, Regis, I'm sorry. I don't mean to break your heart. But okay. Yeah, no, it's just not, it's never really been my jam. So I'm never there. I'm always on Twitch. I'm watching live streams. I watch you on Twitch. I just like the live part. I'm not a huge fan of the like pre-recorded, highly edited or not highly edited, depending on what kind of content you're watching stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a huge YouTube person.
Yeah, I'm neutral, I guess. I thought we'd see bigger numbers on YouTube, to be honest. Not necessarily bigger than Twitch right away, but bigger than we're seeing. There is definitely the ability for YouTube to support it algorithmically and drive a ton of viewership. I mean, even my videos, you know, if I put a new card review out, it's like I get 25,000 views in the first hour or something. It's like a live stream of esports content could get the same if the algorithm was there to back it up. So I guess YouTube's not manipulating those results at all. It's kind of just whatever's happening naturally, but it feels like the potential's there, because you would think that could scale 10 times bigger than me, right? They could get hundreds of thousands of views in an hour, which would probably translate to 30, 40,000 people watching, I think, given average watch times at least. So I'm still hopeful, I guess, but early signs are kind of concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's just like whenever we start talking about it, it's just like, well, me personally, it just hasn't really changed much for me. So, because this is really for me, like my gripe with Hearthstone esports is all the damn breaks, and that's why I like watching it on VOD after the fact.
I feel you there.
Yeah, so I can just skip it because it's like the same 4 freaking commercials every time.
Yeah, especially the last Masters Tour, the first one that they did on YouTube. It was like they had like 2 things that they just played over and over and over and over. And
this one wasn't as bad.
Yeah,
this one wasn't nearly as bad, I found, but like the last one, I think they were breaking it up like in between like game 2 and game 3, and that was driving me insane. If I'm remembering correctly, but anyway, that's a little mini aside, but yeah, it's concerning for sure, but I mean, we'll see. It certainly seems like there's not really much of a choice. It's kind of the deal that was made. So I think this is the Hearthstone esports world that we're living in, at least for now. So
yeah, how long does the deal actually go for? It's multiple years, right?
I don't remember offhand without having the headlines up in front of us, and that was, I don't even remember how many weeks ago now at this point, so I couldn't even find it quickly.
Yeah,
going back through our old notes. But yeah,
but it's a while anyways.
Yeah, it really what it boils down to is like, I think we could help as well by just mentioning it more often and just reminding folks like, hey, it's on YouTube now. Like I feel like Blizzard doing a pretty good job. Like it was all over the launcher this past weekend. I noticed it a lot more places than I did the first Master Store. So if they just keep that up, and I think, the community as a whole just kind of keeps reminding everyone, it should help a lot. Because
they did also they did increase their viewership, and then they also, but they're kind of, I feel like, confusing things a little bit too, because they did both the announcement stream and I guess it's not part of esports, so it didn't get the like YouTube exclusivity, but they did the stream today and the reveal stream last week were both available on Twitch too, and they were up over 30,000 viewers, and it's like, wow, it's kind of making YouTube look a little bad because there's only a couple thousand of them over there, but because they like co-streamed it both places. There's just confusing the messaging a little.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember, like, Grandmaster still isn't going yet. That's going to be much more regular content happening daily, which should just be a constant reminder of where to go and watch this. Whereas we've had 2 master stores that are pretty far apart that have happened on YouTube. Like these are 2 events that have happened like in a very short amount of time. I'm curious to see what happens with Grandmasters before I really start like being like, oh geez, I don't know if this is going to work or not. But
yeah, that weekly consistency might be enough to kind of push them over the edge of like getting people to actually make the transition.
Yeah.
I will say I think YouTube is generally a more casual audience than Twitch, both in viewership time, like they watch less stuff, but also they aren't as into Hearthstone. They're probably worse players and maybe aren't as interested in the competitive side of things. So,
Gauntlet thrown.
Those are my boys out there. Like that's what I love. Like that's my audience. I'm not slighting them, but I just think that's like how it breaks down. Like YouTube people watch 20 minutes at a time instead of 4 hours at a time. So a day-long esports event may not be as compelling on YouTube as Twitch. It's just like different attention spans and audiences and kind of levels of interest. They'd rather see crazy meme decks doing crazy things than maybe like the most refined level of play. So I wonder if there's just a little bit of an audience finding itself problem across those platforms as well. It may not really be fixable just because of the way people's attention spans work. But again, just that's where we're at. It's reality. So we'll have to sort it out.
That's okay, YouTube audience. I think you share a lot in common with podcast audience, which is like, I think you're cultured. I think you like more refined content that have time and care put into how it is presented.
That's synonymous with my YouTube for sure.
I mean, you somehow have kept your hair looking very nice during the quarantine. I am
my wife cut my hair actually. She tried her best. I think it looks pretty good. We kind of saved it. I was like, well, okay, deal. I'll try this from now on. Save some money.
I'm wearing a hat because I have to. There's so much hair under here. It's unseemly. So yeah. So anyways, before we move on, we have a giveaway to announce. Blizzard sent us 7 Ashes of Outland standard pre-purchase bundles to give away. We're announcing that giveaway now. You can find all of the details if you go to the episode post for this episode, and you'll see a Gleam link. Jocelyn, what are all the ways people can enter?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot now. Jeez, it's basically exactly the same as last time. So you can enter just by having your Twitch account actually hooked up to Gleam, which if you entered the last ones, you've already done that. Easy entry, guys. Follow both Garrett, A-Move TV, and me on Twitch. You get a bonus if you've subbed to either or both of us. And then just following the shows and us on our Twitter. So there's 7 possible ways to win 7 possible bundles.
Yes. Get in there.
I can't get over Regis's smile. He's just so
that was amusing. Yeah.
all the time.
Just so excited. Yeah. So it's going to close on Monday, March 30th, 2020 at midnight Eastern time. So you've got some time, folks. Head on over there. And if you're already doing these things, that works. You just got to make sure you're
you just have to go and kind of like register it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can leave a little link right here for... Oh, you already did it. Look at you.
I did.
Look at you. Little live chat. Thanks, folks. Also, before we get into Ashes of Outland talk, free decks for new and returning players have been detailed. Exactly what the decks are. I believe we made quick mention of this on last week's 3-hour marathon episode.
I think we did. I don't really remember.
It's kind of a blur. The whole thing is a blur. But I do believe we made mention that Cora had tweeted out last week that these deck lists would be publicly posted ahead of time. They now have been. It is on Reddit. We have a link in the show notes. But if you just go find the post, free deck for new and returning players on the Hearthstone subreddit, you can see each and every one of these deck lists because you get to choose your class and then you get a deck to keep for that class. And they are looking so much better than what you currently get to start playing with that I kind of lack the words to quantify how much better they are.
Yeah, and even just like the name, trees are friends. Like, yes, Druid. Love it.
Yeah. Have you taken a look at these deck lists, Regis?
I did very briefly. I think Highlander Mage was the one that stuck out the most to me as the kind of highest value. Had Zephyrus and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and Reno the Relicologist as 3 like really good legendaries. It's a competitive deck list. It builds your dust up. Seemed like a good option. Maybe higher skill than perhaps some of them, which may not be like returning players or new players, but nonetheless, I think that would be the best bet from what I saw. I'd have to maybe do a closer study on dust value or something to really say for sure. But Highlander Mage looked like the most obvious choice at first glance.
They've kind of, it looks like they've given 2 to 3 legendaries to pretty much each of the actual decks. So they're keeping them relatively close in cost, but I agree. I think there's there's also the Galakron Rogue in there, which is also a pretty competitive deck. Right. So they've done a pretty good job actually with kind of keeping the classes, like giving you stuff you can actually play with instead of, like some of the deck recipes in the past.
Most of the deck recipes in the past.
I was trying to be nice.
All of the deck recipes. Yeah, I think Blizzard told us the logic basically was to, be fairly competitive with them. Like they wanted them to be good, maybe not the most, optimized version of the list or the most expensive version of the list, but something that could certainly help you climb and get you rolling pretty successfully. Did we clarify the conditions that you need to meet to get the decks? I just want to be sure we don't give everybody the idea that everybody gets these decks.
That everybody can go and buy them. Yeah. So I think you have to have not logged into Hearthstone in the past 4 months, starting with March 17th, which was St. Patrick's Day last Tuesday when the announcement came out.
Right.
You can only get 1 per account too. So you can't go and get all of these. Once you go through the like little intro Illidan thing starting March 26th. So starting tomorrow, you actually then get to choose which of these decks you want, and then they become part of your collection. So you just kind of get all of these cards. So again, like speaking to your what's most value idea there, Regis, like these become your cards, so you can actually like disenchant them if you want to. So if you don't want to play any of these, you can just grab the one that's worth the most dust and then dust the whole thing.
Yeah, or use the cards in other decks, like use Zephyr.
Yes, yeah, you could. I guess you could do that too.
Yeah, so some of them I know focused a little more on class cards, which you may not have as much kind of you can't play them across multiple classes and multiple archetypes and decks. But Zephyrus and Alexstrasza in particular have a lot of flexibility, so those stood out. Yeah.
Or if you're an entirely new account, which I guess falls under the umbrella of not logging into Hearthstone before March 17th. Technically, new players haven't logged in 4 months.
I really messed up logging into my Europe account on my phone to play Battlegrounds without fear of disconnect ruining what the MMR I care about. I really messed up. I could have gotten one of these. Decks on my European account, which desperately needs it, by the way. That account could not pick up wins in Constructed. But yeah, so anyways, you can go check that out. Like I said, we have a link in the show notes. And now before we get to Ashes of Outland, huge thanks to our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you like the show, that is the best way to support it. And you can get yourself access to our Discord and our ad-free podcast feed. You get a version of the podcast that I sit there and actually splice out the ads for you folks. So go check it out, patreon.com/TAC. And thank you to Jory Purvis, Joel Legans, and Andrew Baranyai. Thank you very much for the support. And also thank you to Thrall, Jocelyn's cat, for jumping up on her during this and just making me smile, filling my heart with love.
For the second time, I've been, ever since I moved. So if you guys are watching the video, I don't have my green screen. I've moved out of the basement. We're doing some renovation down there. So I'm in my living room now. And ever since I've come upstairs, both he and Lex, my dog, have just been like, oh, you're here. Let's hang out. Oh, we love you. Hi. Oh, are you busy? No, good. Here's my butt in your face.
Well, yeah. We thank him for his butt in your face. And now onward to Ashes of Outland.
Smiley face emoji.
They've shown all the cards. As I already kind of mentioned, if you listen to the intro, we're not talking about all the cards today, but we are going to talk about different themes that are very, very obvious when you look at all the cards together. And I wanted to start with Hand Beast Buffing Hunter, because there's quite a few beast buffing cards that are buffing beasts in your hands. that stand out to me. And we're going to try and keep this to be an open and flowing conversation. Audio listeners, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we read specific cards that we mention. We're not going in any particular order. We're going to try and keep this as organic as we can make it. So bear with us as we do that. But one of the first cards that made me think of this, we talked about last week, which was Scavenger's Ingenuity. That was the 2-mana draw beast, give it +3/+3 card that we talked about last week. But now we have seen so many more cards that are kind of in this vein of giving a beast that you haven't played yet a buff, including things like Hellbore, which is just a 1-mana 2/1. Don't worry, it doesn't have charge. I know it's like a cheap boar. Don't worry, but it does have a death rattle that reads: give a random beast in your hand +1/+1, and it's not alone. Jocelyn, you're the resident Hunter fanboy. Regis, I actually don't know where you stand on Hunter.
I play whatever. I don't care. I play a lot.
Everyone
so it all
equally.
Works. Yeah, except for Priest, maybe.
Nice. Yeah. Me. Well, I used to really like Priest, and then they just kept buffing health and divine spiriting for years, and I kind of got bored.
It's okay. It's gone now.
Thank good. Well, I don't want to. That's flippant, and a lot of Priest players are very concerned, and I think their concerns are somewhat valid. So I don't want to be too flippant, but I think this looks cool for the hand buffing, especially with a tutor effect in Scavenger's Ingenuity. Like, you're gonna be able to find your beast through that draw effect, and it's gonna have a beefy buff on top of it. That alone made me interested. And then after seeing Hellbore, after seeing Augmented Porcupine, which is a 3-mana 2/4 with the death rattle that deals this minion's attack damage randomly split among all enemies, that's really cool. And then obviously the Prime card, which is a Zixor Apex Predator. It's a 3-mana 2/4 rush, death rattle, shuffle Zixor Prime into your deck. And Zixor Prime is an 8-mana 4/4 with rush, but the battle cry summons 3 copies of this minion, and it is a beast, so you could buff it up and get multiple copies of the buffed Zixor Prime.
Yeah,
or 7/7s instead of a 4-mana 7/7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the last time that we really saw them go hard into hand buffing was back in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan for Hunter, and I think this is just a better iteration of it. This seems to be, giving you a targeted draw, giving you a bigger buff than, you would normally get, or, you're very much targeting removal while also making your stuff better. This just seems a lot better, and Hunter has no shortage of really strong beasts. So it's you got good beast cards anyways, and now you've got some draw stuff, you've got some removal stuff, and those are just going to make your beast better. This looks like a really interesting archetype to me.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing that's changed since that era of hand buff as well is we have rush minions everywhere now, including very prominently in Hunter. Maybe not in the Outland set, but still a lot of rush stuff is lingering around. Zixor is one example of a nice rush minion there. So the hand buff stats actually go into action much faster. In the past, you'd hand buff something, you'd play it. It would sit there for a turn, then you'd finally get to interact with it. So it would take the hand buff turn, and then you'd play it. So you'd be kind of on a 2 to 3 turn delay before your stats really did anything. And this basically is removing one of those turns of delay because you have rush minions now, and you can force the action, put the stats into place sooner. So I'm also hopeful that it actually gets there. I still have some concerns because these are single targeted hand buff cards as opposed to full hand buff. So that can be advantageous because you can narrow it in on a key target that you really care about, but it also limits the scope and scalability a little bit. So I hope it gets there, but
in before there's some sort of charging boar deck that just holds the boar the whole game and just buffs the crap out of it and then does 30 damage in one turn.
Well, it's true that you can use Scavenger's Ingenuity as a tutor effect to get the exact beast you want, like a Stone Tusk Boar or a King Crush or whatever, and then start stacking on that one beast. So in OTK possibilities there, I think more of a just kind of generalized mid-rangey tempo version is possible. We've got the Porcupine for death rattle synergies. So it could just be a complementary piece. It could also just squeeze into a Highlander deck too, where you just need more cards.
Yeah.
It
I mean, especially Scavenger's Ingenuity, where you're gonna have beasts in your hunter deck anyways. Even some of like the dragon hunters and the like secret hunters, they've all got a beast or two. Like you can't really get away from beasts in hunter. So if you can just draw cards, which is something that hunter tends to be not that great at anyways, like you're gonna thin your deck, and you're also, when you draw it, making it much more powerful than it was in the first place. By like that +3/+3 is a really big buff. So I think that just all of this means it's going to find a spot in Hunter, Scavenger's Ingenuity at least. So you're going to see some buffing of beasts, even if you can't make a whole like hand buff thing happen. Maybe you can make a whole hand buff Hunter over
I think
Wild.
it's Hunter, man. They usually have like 7 solid archetypes to take on the ladder. I'm sure
true.
this will be one of them.
Yeah.
That's fair. I will say the one card I don't like in the hand buff package is Scrap Shot, 4-mana spell, deal 3 damage, give a random beast in your hand +3/+3. I don't think 3 damage is quite enough for 4 mana, even though it can go face, which is something Hunter likes. I'm worried that's giving up a tad too much tempo in the hand buff swing that happens, a turn or two later. May not be worth it. If that dealt 4 damage or cost 3 mana, I think the card would be like perfect for this. But as it stands, some of those numbers just don't quite get there for me. So that might be a weak spot of a full-in hand buff deck right now. But I'm going to keep an eye on it because it can go face. Face is good for Hunter.
Yeah.
Flanking Strike definitely is the one that came to mind when I saw Scrap Shot. I was like, it's kind of like similar, but different. And maybe you're right. Like, because you still have to, since the beast is in your hand, you still have to play it out, right? You still have to pay that mana cost. You still have to wait for the attack or whatever. And you're either waiting late game and trying to hit something of a lower mana cost to get it out the same turn, or you're again splitting it over a couple turns. So yeah,
it's a perfect
I can see what
example.
you're saying about that.
It's a low tempo flanking strike. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Rad. Well, let's move on to something that I did not expect to get excited about, which is Mage. I'm not typically a big Mage player.
Man, I love Mage. I love Mage in Hearthstone. Not so big a fan of it in WoW, but in Hearthstone, I love it.
See, I am aligned with my World of Warcraft. I just Paladin all day, every day, in both. And I don't get it because I'm a total freaking edgelord. I should be playing Death Knight, which isn't an option in Hearthstone for now. Where's my camera? For now.
Demon Hunter's kind of close. Like they're kind of edgy. So
their edgelord is all get out. They're emo. I love that. Emo. I love that we got the term emo used in an actual expansion announcement for Hearthstone. Like that just made me so freaking happy. But no minion mage. No minion mage has me so freaking excited. So there's quite a few cards I want to mention here. Incanter's Flow, a 2-mana spell for Mage that reduces the cost of spells in your deck by 1. This is very interesting when we get into all of these other freaking spells that build upon this minion-free Mage deck. Like Font of Power, which is a 1-mana discover a Mage minion. If your deck has no minions, keep all 3. Seems good. But
I love the head bob.
Are you just waiting for Deep Freeze to like go off with hype, Regis?
No. I'm torn.
Okay.
I was really excited about this. More thinking about it, I'm not sold. I tried to build a deck list today, and it really struggled to build one. So keep going through the cards. We'll talk through it. But
Okay.
I've got some, hesitation.
All right. So Incanter's Flow, Font of Power, not quite getting there. How about I tell you about Deep Freeze, Regis? It's an 8-mana spell. Freeze an enemy. Summon 2 3/6 water elementals.
Yeah, it summons some water elementals. Yeah. But it's 8 mana. It's pretty expensive.
It's probably going to be 6 by the time you get to it.
7 or 6. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. There's a lot of Galakrons out there. I don't know if 2 water elementals on turn 6 is enough. I'm being a bit of a downer because here's the deal. I built a theory crafted deck list for no minion mage today. I was really excited about it as well. I thought, oh my gosh, Incanter's Flow seems insane. All these discounts, but it didn't feel like there's enough ways to actually interact with stuff. Like you can't really summon enough minions. There's Deep Freeze. There's like Power of Creation. There's a handful of spells in standard format, some secrets that summon you things, including the new Netherwind portal that will summon you a 4-cost minion after your opponent casts a spell. There's options, but it felt really inconsistent. I was like trying to get enough minions, then I gave up on control tools and removal. and it felt like half the time I didn't know what I was going to do on a given mana cost or curve. It's like, well, I don't have anything to do for turns like 4 through 6 or something. And if you don't hit Incanter Slow, then everything's all out of whack. So, and then Font of Power, like, okay, that sounds really cool. 3 minions for 1 mana is like a lot of value, but I look through Mage minions and there's like, well, I don't know, half of these aren't that great. So there's the Antonidas high rolls, but so I don't want to be a downer because I'm really excited to try it and I hope I'm wrong. And maybe there's some Magic deck list that lines it up.
Yeah, I think
I feel like getting enough minions is the problem. And then getting enough value after you get those minions to kind of stretch the game out is going to be problematic too. So please talk me into it. I want to talk me off this ledge. Like,
I'm not because I want to actually laser focus a little bit more on. I think you bring up an interesting point with Incanter's Flow about how if you don't hit it, it kind of throws your play out of whack. And I could see, because the thought for half a second flooded into my mind of, well, this is Mage. They're used to just praying for Pocket Galaxy, but that's a card you didn't play until later. Incanter's Flow is something you want very early in a deck like this.
You have to hit it earlier. It's no good. Like if you hit it on turn 10, you don't care because Pocket Galaxy could like accelerate your discounts because you could discount things by like 9 all at once. This has got to take time to stack up to all the discounts because you're only getting each card by 1 at a time as opposed to like 8 or 9 mana in a single play. So you need time for it to get there. And that makes me nervous. And I liked this card when I reviewed it and I'm getting lower and lower on it over time. Even talking right now, I'm like, oh no.
It does feel quite Keliseth-y, right? Like if you don't get it kind of on early on, then, you know, you're losing its effectiveness. You're losing its value. The more cards you draw out of your deck. Right. So. Yeah.
Didn't they at one point say that they weren't happy with the draw dependency of Keliseth? And I feel like we're seeing a lot of Keliseth cards. We saw a few that were in that vein in Descent of Dragons, and now we're seeing a few that are in that vein here. When it felt like there was quite a drought of really draw like heavy cards that like post Keliseth. Like it really felt like they kind of got away from that, and now it feels like they're going back to it. And I'm excited for our next dev interview because I want to ask them like why, what made you go back in this direction?
Well, Celestalon is in the chat room.
Oh, hi,
there's a
dude.
pretty large difference between this and Keliseth, to be fair.
I mean,
I love it.
I don't think there is. If you want me to deep freeze, like,
I will say I don't think the payoff of this is as high as Keliseth personally.
Which then that means like the downside isn't as big as Keliseth too, right? Like,
right.
The swing isn't as extreme.
Yeah, because a lot of the cards you care about discounting are going to be more impactful later in the game, whereas Keliseth gave you the stats pretty fast. Like, of course, you had to draw the cards, but it would start pretty quickly and overwhelming the board really quickly. And I think this one, you know, first off, you got to have 2 cards to even make up the sacrifice of this card itself because you're not playing a minion on board like with Keliseth. But beyond that, you know, for it to really make sense for me, it's like I probably have to play like 5, 6, 7 cards to really feel like I got some value out of this, which is going to take a lot of draws and a lot of turns and a lot of time. So what I think this will get way better later. We don't have that many cards that are going to be in standard format because we're going to be on 4 expansions. We'll be moving up to 5 and then 6 throughout the course of the year, right? And I think as we get more Mage spells in the pool, this starts to feel better and better, particularly because I'm sure this is something they're setting up for and probably deliver on a little more over time. So right now I'm doubtful, but I'm still hopeful overall. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is another one too that I'm kind of interested to see where it might go over on the wild side, because there's a bunch of things over there that will give you minions that you don't have access to on the standard side of things. So I wonder if there's, you know, just like Firelands Portal and what was the other portal? Just Unstable Portal, right? Right. You know, they've got a lot of portals over there that seem to bring the minions to the yard. So maybe that's just the kind of thing that, you know, you've got to make work in wild until we get a couple more expansions later on this year.
Yeah, I will say one thing I didn't try to build, which might be a different angle, is like just a stall, freeze, burst damage, all spell mage, no minion mage, where it's just like you just lock things down. So it's less focused on maybe summoning minions and more just like, I'm going to stall this out and then go over the top with Pyroblast, Fireballs, whatever.
Well, yeah, because you'll have 8 mana Pyroblasts
exactly.
and, you know, 2 mana Fireballs.
Fireball. So it's 16 damage in one
turn.
swoop.
Yeah,
exactly. So that might be an angle for this that I haven't really considered or played around with yet. That's intriguing, but it's like Frost Nova kind of needs a Doomsayer almost sometimes, right? So there's no Doomsayer.
Yeah. So it's like you have to kind of freeze like turn over turn over turn over turn over turn because otherwise.
Yeah, I will say I do love the idea of this. Like it feels so iconically Mage, like to have no like physical combat really so much except maybe summoning stuff, but so
like water elementals. It's perfect.
Exactly. From a flavor standpoint, this is like out of the park, perfect. I just don't know if I'm gonna get there from a competitive gameplay standpoint just yet, but again, I have hope. By the way, Deep Freeze artwork, I just love the colors of it or something. It looks so cool. Sorry, audio listeners, you can't see it yet, but look out for it next time you see it. Deep Freeze is really cool looking.
Our listeners are very used to Jocelyn getting excited about anything that is purple and blue.
Yeah, so you're right on brand. I love it.
Anything that leans towards cotton candy colors. Jocelyn will make note of it. Which, by the way, first of all, I'm excited about Evocation, which we haven't talked about. Legendary spell for Mage, 1 mana, fill your hand with random Mage spells at the end of your turn, discard them. Also passes the Jocelyn color test.
Absolutely. And I find this card to be really interesting because it's giving me like Solarium vibes, except for it's not pulling anything out of your deck. So when you discard it at the end of your turn, you're not effectively like losing any of your cards. So, and it fills your entire hand, right? So you just get a bunch of stuff and then you can play them or not and kind of like make a turn out of whatever you get. Like there's going to be a lot of options here. I think this is a powerful card.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yes.
I have no additional insights. You covered it. Yeah.
Nothing to add. Well, cool. Well, and then let's move to the group that I entirely added here for completely selfish reasons, although I legitimately do think this is awesome, which is Libram Paladin. This was what I spent the most time with at the summit that wasn't Demon Hunter or Battlegrounds, because I saw these Librams and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And then I saw that they could be discounted and I was like permanently discounted. And I was just like, yes.
I was actually sitting next to you and you were talking to a dev, I don't remember who, and I heard this thing happen live. You were like, oh my God, it could be discounted. You had such a powerful reaction to it. It was really,
I love Paladin so much, and this is so cool. This is
it
so
really is cool.
Freaking cool. So let's start with, we've got a lot of reading incoming because I want to mention all the Librams for audio listeners. Libram of Justice is 6 mana, equip a 1/4 weapon, change the health of all enemy minions to 1. Libram of Wisdom is 2 mana, give a minion +1/+1 and Death Rattle, add a Libram of Wisdom to spell to your hand. So it's the Libram that just keeps on Libraming.
It's like Valinir. Explorer's hat. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Except it's like the hat of the light is what it should have been called.
It's just a book on your head. Like,
yes.
I love it.
Freaking Libram of Justice. It's a book on the end of, it's a book mace.
Oh,
that's the art for Libram of Justice.
It's so good too. If you look at the token art, it's so good.
Yeah.
If you click up the token art for viewers, it's so good. Yeah. Like it's actually a hammer with a book at the end instead of a hammer.
It's fantastic. So and then Libram of Hope, 9 mana, restore 8 health, summon an 8/8 Guardian with Taunt and Divine Shield. And you might be thinking to yourself, some of those seemed a little expensive. Let me point you to our friend Aldor Attendant, 2 mana, 2/3, Battle Cry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. So permanent like aura basically discount on Librams, and this counts for the Libram of Wisdoms that get added to your hand from Libram of Wisdom's Death Rattle.
Yeah, it's not like a deck buff or anything. It's just like straight up, you have this thing now.
Yeah, and Aldor Attendant is a common, so you can have 2 of them in your deck, which means if you play both, Libram and Wisdoms are now just 0 mana for the rest of the game. If you can keep, finding ways to kill your minions and generate them. And if you can't find ways to kill your minions, you're probably doing okay. Or you're playing against Regis's
then you just have a whole bunch of live minions, so...
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm very excited about all of this. There's also Outdoor Truth Seeker at 5 mana. It's a 4/6 with taunt and battle cry. Reduce the cost of your Librams by 2 this game, and then capping all of this off is Lady Liadrin is coming in as a legendary minion that we can play for Paladin as a 7 mana 4/6 with a battle cry that reads, add a copy of each spell you cast on friendly characters this game to your hand.
And she looks badass.
Well, it's Lady Liadrin.
I know. I'm just stoked.
This is how she looks rolling out of bed. This is just standard Lady Liadrin. She just always
with the shield and everything. She just sleeps on the shield, ready to.
Listen, they don't have guns to put under their pillows, right? Unless they're dwarves. So you gotta sleep with your sword and your shield under your pillow.
Makes sense.
But this card, the fact that it was like if you cast it on friendly, like it's nutty, the things that could happen. Now, granted, my limited experience playing this was a very small pool. Everyone else was just like slamming Demon Hunter games. And I was just like, I'm going to play some Libram Paladin. It went very well. I'm very excited about the spell generation through Lady Liadrin and through just the extreme affordability of Librams. If you get these discount minions out in play, do you have a reality check for me, Regis?
No, I think it's really cool. I mean, the flavor is just outstanding. It feels so Paladin. I can see why you love it so much. Really, really good there. I think it's really intriguing. It's not enough to build the deck on by itself, right? There's only, 6-7 cards or something here total. But I think like pure Paladin supports this really well already. The all Paladin deck, basically. We have a nice package there you can kind of fuse in with this. It's got some good tempo plays. I think both Outdoor Truth Seeker and Outdoor Attendant, the setup discount cards for Librams, are pretty good on curve plays. They're not like great, but they're acceptable.
The Truth Seeker really stuck out to me because I was like, a 4/6, just that 6 health on turn 5. It has taunt. It's got a lot of attack too, which means, anything that's been played earlier in the game that runs into it's probably going to die, and it might have to be a 2-for-1. So, I mean, just a 4/6 for 5 isn't terrible because of the taunt factor, and then you get the Libram discount for the rest of the game. Like, that's pretty good.
I could have easily seen that being like a 2/2 and a 4/4 or something, just like not getting there. But it feels like Blizzard made a concerted effort, at least to my eye, to like, okay, let's make sure these are playable. You don't feel guilty or bad playing these on curve, which that makes all the difference for me. I think if these felt like bad on curve plays, this wouldn't get there. Like, you'd sacrifice too much tempo and you'd be getting all this pass back value way later in a game. But the fact that you can do this, and often your Libram of Wisdoms are going to be able to be played just for free on command, like really early in this deck, I think, very often. So like it's a 4/6, but maybe it's actually a 5/7 too, right? Because you're just dumping a Libram of Wisdom for 0 on it that's already in your hand, which helps kind of catch up as well from a stat standpoint and keep you on board. So I think it's really cool. I'm very, very excited to play this. I think with a pure Paladin package, it makes a lot of sense. And I built one today. It felt like I got a good deck list. I didn't really make very many compromises at all. Maybe 3 or 4 cards didn't feel perfect, but 26 cards were great and felt like a tight deck. So I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the...
Sorry, Garrett.
I was going to say, I'm really excited about the interplay between Libram of Justice and Libram of Hope. I like the idea of making a 1-attack weapon exciting, and because Libram of Justice has an equality effect baked in, suddenly you're interested in it. Yes, it's a lot of mana, but that's when you probably want to be dealing with bigger threats out on the board. But you're also going to take a lot of face damage because you're trading in, because it's not doing jack to the attack. But you can restore 8 health and put a taunt with Divine Shield in the way because of Libram of Hope. Like, that's another like this control tool that just makes my Paladin fantasies, my realistic Paladin fantasies of like maybe actually winning some ladder games while enjoying the theme of my deck, just kind of run away.
Yeah, it's great. We didn't even mention Hand of Vidal, by the way, another spell that's not a Libram but is a targeted buff, which does synergize with Lady Liadrin as well. So a little bonus card here. And sorry, Joss, I think I cut you off there.
That's okay, not a problem. I was just gonna say on like Garrett's kind of thoughts about being like feeling good about playing Paladin again. I feel like for a while you've kind of had if you like the longer games, you're looking at like a Holy Wrath style, and that's obviously going to go away because we're losing Shivala. But then if you're, the other option has kind of been mechs or murlocs for a while, and that like hyper aggressive, there hasn't really been an in between. And this kind of feels like You're doing some tempo stuff. You're doing some mid-range stuff, but you're still got those little bits of control pieces. Like this feels like a well-paced Paladin deck, not one of the two extremes that we've kind of been playing in for a while.
I think that's right. Also, I have to say from a flavor standpoint, Murlocs and mechs didn't really feel like Paladin-esque to me. They're not like holy or anything, you know, like this really big, iconic, holy style of characters. I mean, mechs had like Divine Shields, which kind of got halfway there, but this feels like so core to Paladin.
Yeah.
This is the Paladin story. So that's going to be a nice change of pace too that I hope works. It's really cool.
Listen, the Murlocs, those Murlocs have given themselves over to the light. Who are you to tell them that their faith doesn't matter? Jeez, Regis. Come on. No. By the way, Paladin getting some rad Murlocs this expansion too.
Yeah.
So
that is true. Yeah, they haven't abandoned the Murloc in Paladin for sure.
Yeah, and the Prime card has a really cool storyline. If you look up the flavor text, like it kind of explains why they're in Outland and stuff. Like really neat attention to detail there. So
I love this little guy
in the flavor text.
Murlocs are not.
Just...
I'm
Sorry, go ahead.
Read it. Murlocs are not native to Outland. When the Sun Guilds arrived, one of them rose to the challenge of this dark world. They called him Murgurgle. Murgurgle.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, crying out loud. Yeah. We'll talk about Murlocs at some point in the future, but I'm very, very excited for Libram Paladin. All right. Are you excited? Are you ready to talk about the most clickbait thing in the history of Hearthstone? A new charge card is being printed digitally. These aren't paper cards. I don't know why I said printed. Kayn Sunfury is coming to Demon Hunter, a 4-mana 3/5 legendary minion with charge and text that reads, all friendly attacks ignore taunt.
Does this seem as like gross face yuck? Like, I don't know. It is like you guys got to actually see it and probably get your hands on it. Does it feel as bad in practice as it looks when I read this card?
So
none of us are playing taunt cards because we were all playing Demon Hunters, so we don't know.
Yeah, everything went face anyway.
Everybody's playing Kayn Sunfury, so there's no taunts.
Yeah, the summit was very much like a drag race between two like 1,000 horsepower cars because it was just Demon Hunter versus Demon Hunter. It was like watching ZVZ all day in StarCraft 2, just trying to six pool each other constantly, which you can't even do anymore. This card does seem good. Now, a lot of the attack values of Demon Hunter minions are on the lower side, and there's not much in the way of minion buffs going on in Demon Hunter. So I know this has charge on it. It's like friendly minion, but only this has charge. It's not giving anything else charge. So you need to already have a board developed to get a lot of value out of friendly attacks, ignoring taunt. The one big exception that if you haven't already thought about this, you should, is that friendly attacks. This means your own hero, and Demon Hunter is lousy with hero attack buffing cards. Just chock full of them. So
yeah, I here's what I'll say. I mean, I just look at it as like a 3/5 charge minion, regardless of the all friendly attacks ignoring taunt. That feels pretty good already. Like Kor'kron Elite gets played in aggressive warrior decks. It's a 4/3. Like yes, it's got a little more attack, health. This feels right in line with Kor'kron Elite at a base. So that's a plus in my book. And then the upside is like, well, it's a finishing tool. If you have just a couple minions on board, this is another maybe 3, 4, 5 damage, 6, 7 damage tossed in as well. And it's it's not just ignoring one taunt like a silence, it's ignoring all taunts. So even if your opponent plays some big wide board of taunts, get out of here. I don't care about your 6 Void Lords. They don't matter. So I do feel like this gets there. I think it was probably a little overreacted to because it's first charge card in a long time, and it seems like just so smart crazy. I probably played up a lot of that myself, to be honest. I'm guilty as much as anybody. But I do still think it's a card that goes into most decks. It's probably not going to feel terrible to play against. I don't think it's going to steal games out from under people as much as we might expect at first glance. But I do think it's just a really consistent, whether it's the charge itself or just sneaking in some extra damage, that feels like it's going to offer a lot of upside to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the getting rid of all the taunt is cheat like memes and stuff. Like, think taunt is cheat? Play Demon Hunter. Done. At least it's a legendary. It's a one-off, so it's going to be harder to draw than a 2 of, and yeah, but it's definitely very finishy, and it does take away a little bit of an opponent's ability to kind of fight back, because previously, oh my god, I'm getting totally smoked by a hunter. What do I do? At least I can either heal or put a taunt up, and that'll buy me some time, give me some options. But yeah, Demon Hunter's just like, screw you.
I hate to break it to you, Jocelyn, but Skull of Gul'dan does exist, so it's not going to be that hard to draw, and it's going to cost 1 mana when they draw it off the Skull of Gul'dan.
That's also true. Damn.
Yeah, but there's no Leroy. Leroy's gone. It's okay. No Leroy. It's fine. Kane is our new overlord. No Leroy.
Yeah.
How much do you guys think the percentage of ladder is going to be on day 1 for Demon Hunters? Like 98%?
I think it's going to be
at least.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really overweight. Well, I always say that, but like, what is the other thing we all complain about on day 1 of an expansion? People just rocking old decks. So no, actually, I don't necessarily think that's going to be true. I think it's going to be old decks and then just Demon Hunters. So
it's like 50-50 Dragon Hunter, and then the other 50 is Demon Hunter. Dragon Hunter or Demon Hunter, choose.
Green everywhere.
And I'm going to be standing there with my book on a stick as the lone Libram Paladin going, I will smite you, emo lords.
Just don't put any taunts in your deck and you're good to go.
Celestalon, it says 42% in the chat room is Celestalon's guess.
Very calculated, educated guess.
So can you inform us after the fact if you are correct or not, Celestalon? Could you maybe do a little tweet?
I would love to know, yeah.
Tweet at TAC Podcast. Hey, turns out this was the actual percentage.
It turns out 84 was the real number. Double.
I do think a lot of people will be trying out Demon Hunter, especially with like everyone having to go through the intro stuff with Illidan and to unlock the class and stuff. And you're going to have access to a lot of those cards through that process. So I think that there's probably going to be some people that are going to be trying it out, but it's also a rotation. So usually on rotations, you don't get as many of the old decks because a lot of them lose key pieces. True. So of all the times to introduce a new class and try to get people playing it, I think, a rotation is the best time to do that. So I think it'll be up there for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And then I wanted to talk about Jocelyn, I know there was a tech card you really wanted to talk about, and I figured we'd sneak a couple neutrals, notable neutrals.
I see the card on screen, and okay, good. I thought you were gonna start with the orange hair guy, and you're gonna make fun of me.
Oh no!
Oh no!
No, I mean, if
you're just all ready to be like, no, that is the one thing we are not allowed to talk about.
I thought this was a setup. Like, oh shoot!
No, it is
looking right at it.
It is not. I mean, now that you mentioned it, I mean there's a resemblance here. There's a majesty to the styling on display of the Guardian Og Merchant.
The best artwork in the history of Hearthstone.
Yeah. RegisKillbin the card.
So beautiful. He doesn't really have a beard though. He kind of
I'm still waiting for a Blood Elf Paladin with a really trendy undercut haircut. Still waiting for that to show up in game. Yeah, but Waste Warden, if I can find the damn thing, sorted by mana cost.
5 mana.
Yeah, there we go. Waste Warden, 5 mana, 3/3 battle cry, deal 3 damage to a minion and all others of the same minion type.
Yeah, so this one I wanted to talk about. Well, first of all, I had a question. I don't know if you guys know the answer or if it's been answered anywhere. I couldn't find it, but this also got revealed today, so I don't know. But I was curious to know if dealing damage to a minion of no type, if no type counts as a type.
I would
or
have
is
to
it
imagine
just stuff with tribes?
I think no. If you go to the website that you're on right now, Garrett, and you look at minion type as a filter, there is not a selection for no minion type.
Yeah. So also, Celestalon is in the chat room.
Thank you.
That helps you, yeah.
I didn't want to call him out and be like, answer my question live right now. Where are you? Let's go. But yeah, okay. No type is not its own type. Okay. Fair enough. But still, I think, again, depending on what kind of meta that we're in, and this feels like a potential inclusion for a tech card if you're looking at the tournament circuit. I don't really think you ever kind of play this on ladder I think you play this at a tournament where you're expecting like a Murloc Paladin and you're expecting, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, if they do end up very, very prevalent on ladder, you might see people putting a 1 or 2 of these in, but it also does cost 5, which is kind of expensive. Like it could potentially be a full board clear if you're dealing with one of those really heavy, like 1 minion type decks, but that's really specific. At least it doesn't specify a minion. So it doesn't say like Murlocs or mechs or totems or whatever. It's just like you pick the target and we deal damage across all of it. And a lot of those like very synergistic 1 minion type decks tend to be very aggressive, tend to have one like, or yeah, low cost stuff and like low health. That's the kind of decks that you're going to go up against. So you probably will get rid of all of those. The big exception is going to be your hand buff beasts. Like this won't touch them. But, you know, if you're seeing Murlocs and mechs, like you're probably going to get some low health stuff, some really aggressive in your face stuff. 5 mana might be too late. Like, I mean, we've all died to a Murloc Paladin like turn 3 or 4, right? So yeah, 5 might be too much, but yeah, we'll see. I think it's an interesting potential esport tournament inclusion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anybody's gonna want to like bear the burden of running this tech card on ladder. It's like, am I the guy that's got to solve this Murloc problem or this demon problem or whatever? So I don't think it'll make the cut in a lot of deck lists. Maybe occasionally a Highlander if there's a lot of different, multiple like demons and Murlocs and something else, right? You might get.
That's the thing. Yeah, you're not totally tunneled down what you're trying to AOE kill, right? Like you. No. It's flexible, right? It can be used in a deck to target anything if, you know, lots of tribal minions with low health are just part of the overall general meta. So I think that's good. I'd rather see something like this than like, you know, a beast warden and a Murloc warden and, you know, like
7 different wardens.
Different wardens, to get the same job done. So I do like the design of this card from that perspective, that it is flexible, like game to game as to what tribe you're targeting. So I think that's good. I thought it was a really interesting card design. I wanted to bring it up today.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way either. You're right. I guess I don't want to see like a crab version of this. That's like a mana 1/2 that destroys anything. But at this mana breakpoint, it does feel like a really elegant answer to that problem. That's cool.
Yeah. Celestalon also mentioning that if you use it on an amalgam, it will hurt all tribes if they're present.
Oh,
didn't realize. Cool. Hadn't thought about that. Mostly because I can't remember last time I saw an amalgam outside of Battlegrounds.
Well, yeah, Nightmare Amalgam is rotating, but there is the witches, the Hinchland Hag, I think, who summons amalgams at 4 mana. She summons the 1/1 amalgam tokens. So that could be a thing. That's really cool.
That is
interesting.
Interesting for sure.
Yeah, we need a crab warden. Love it.
I'm just checking it. Are you good for time, Regis? Do you want to?
I mean, what do we got left here to talk about cards wise? I mean, I can go for a little bit here if we need to.
4 more neutrals that I want to highlight.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do that.
Mostly just fun shout outs for lore reasons.
Magtheridon is next, I'm guessing.
Actually, well, before we get to that, I wanted to talk about Replicator Tron. How do I say it? Replicator Tron. There we go.
Yeah, Replicator Tron. Yeah.
So Replicator Tron's a 4 mana 3/3 mech that reads at the end of your turn, transform a neighbor into a copy of this. So this is a neutral. This one's just interesting because, you know me, always triggered by new ways to word things that we already figured out a way to word them. It was clarified earlier on on Twitter by Celestalon, I believe, that neighbor means adjacent. So this is not a way to
so not like not across the street.
Yeah,
I'm like the one guy who this doesn't bother. The text inconsistencies have never mattered to me. I think if you read the card and you know what it means, that's all that matters to me. I know some people get very, very passionate about this. I respect that. For me, though, I don't know. It made sense. So
it made sense to me
too.
Good to
clarify.
I'm clearly losing this argument because Team 5 consistently is inconsistent with their card text. But it is just such a thing that drives me nuts because I wasn't sure what this meant. And Celestalon is in the chat room being like, "We've had neighbor on cards before." Well, I don't remember them.
Therefore, you're wrong.
Zentimo has a neighbor. Lightning Breath has a neighbor. Sudden Betrayal has a neighbor. Ramming Speed has a neighbor. Super Collider has a neighbor. Actually, there's quite a precedent for neighbor.
Okay, fair.
The new card, the Lurker Below, also has neighbors. So they seem to be moving towards that in the newer sets as opposed to adjacent, maybe. I don't know how consistently, but anyway.
Very fair. Very fair. But yeah, so apparently neighbor, very explicitly only in Hearthstone, your neighbor is only the person to your right and your left. They don't count backyard neighbors or across the street neighbors. Those don't count.
As long as they're 6 feet apart, you're good to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wonder how they feel about townhouses and duplexes. Yeah.
Transform the minions on top of this one to a copy of it.
Yeah. Also, if you're a fan of all like the Inoyotrons, the Psychotrons, the Matt Dixon mechs from the past, Replicator Tron is a great little shout out to all of them. So if you haven't checked out the art already, you Hearthstone art nerds, get out there and give this one a look.
I kind of want a whole set of his like mech art, and I just want to like put it up as like a collage on my wall because they all look so good together. They're all so well done. And yeah, this guy, I was just like, man, he's trying to figure out how to be an Inoyatron and why you would want a horn. He's like picking it up like, what? Okay. I love this card art so much. And in terms of actually like using it in a game, do we think that there's any like application alongside? I mean, he's not a beast, I guess, but I don't know. I just feel like maybe there's like buffy things you could do with this. Like even, I guess not if you're doing a pure paladin version of it, but like anywhere, maybe even priest, where you're trying to, you know, like make a bigger board and buff stuff up, like, you know, making copies of this. Like, yeah, a vanilla version's a 3/3, but you know, he could, you know, take over your board. You just buff one thing, and then before you know it, you've replicated him across your whole board, and everything's huge.
I mean, priests are getting a lot of buff, like
super Mimi,
a lot of minion buffing cards. So I think that does make a decent amount of sense. Or hell, even paladin with the Librans that we talked about. Maybe this finds a way in if they need an extra buff target. I'm not so sure they do, but.
My concern is it kind of takes like 3 pieces of input to make this card work. Replicato itself, some kind of buff, and another minion, which you might have to play that minion. You got to spend mana on the buffs. It's like 3 different things going into one card. It's a big commitment. Like Paladin has the hero power button.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paladin being able to just make those 1/1s to turn into whatever this is, whatever this turns out to be. Maybe.
I think this was like a magnetic card that maybe got designed a year ago and scared people. It's like, oh, we can't put this in the game with Ziliax. Like Ziliax is too insane magnetizing to this mech. So once magnetic rotates, a card like this becomes much safer. Now, obviously, I don't know. This could be new, but I think with magnetic, this would have been a problem. As it stands now, probably just a fun card that isn't quite super competitive, but has some angles to do some cool, fun things.
Yeah, I think there's some exploration here.
Yeah, token decks are getting brought up in chat room, which I think are interesting. My first thought, admittedly, it's more mana than I think I care about, but it's not quite a heal because they're ending with less stats. But if you've already traded, this plus the Faceless Corruptors would be interesting. Because if you were going to be left with like 2 4/1s, you could instead be left with 3 3/3s. But that's a 9 mana combination. So,
well, I guess I'm presuming that this does not create a full chain at the end of turn, right? It would only ever chain to 1 because once the in-turn phase has started,
that's right.
The one that it turns into won't also have an in-turn phase, right?
Yeah.
I think it will just turn one thing.
Yeah, it would just do 1, but then the next turn, if you've got 2 on the board, then they would transform. Yeah. So it would chain over turns, assuming you can keep it on board. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's an interesting card. Anyway, it's a cool design. And I like that you have to, take into consideration the idea of positioning even more so is like, okay, well, what do I want next to this? What do I want to change? You can't just like throw your stuff out onto the board. You have to be really strategic about it. So, maybe like putting this on the end beside a token and then putting the other stuff on the other side of the token that you don't want transformed. But then like what happens next turn? You got to put another buffer minion in there. And yeah, I think there's some really interesting play that could potentially come out of this card.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it lives an entire turn and you're left with the concern of like, well, now I have to deal with the randomness of how this happens. Like it lived the turn. and you probably buffed it, you're probably in a good scenario. But anyway, just thought it was a cool card. I wanted to mention it. And then we got some neutral legendaries that we just have to freaking talk about because they're wildly famous Warcraft characters. Magtheridon is a neutral legendary that is finally going to be playable in Hearthstone very, very soon. It's a 4-mana 12/12 demon.
Yeah, guys, you heard it right. 4-mana 12/12.
But hear us out. Dormant, Battle Cry. Summon 3/1/3 enemy warders. When they die, destroy all minions and awaken. So
there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle.
There's a lot going on here. Yeah. And also this card is a very big answer to why because when they had announced Dormant in the blog post, they were like, Dormant are demons that don't do anything for 2 turns. I'm like, wasn't the 2 turns just mapped, like just brought into the Dormant keyword as opposed to putting 2 turns on the card? Not all of them are, because here's Magtheridon with a very different spin on the Dormant mechanic.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious me. This is like, the theming here is amazing. I have no idea if this is ever going to work.
No. I mean, well, frankly, a lot of people are really excited about this card, which I love. That's great. But a lot of people think it's gonna be really good. I'm not sold. I want somebody to explain it to me. My problem is it takes, at best case, like you play this, you play a Hellfire, you kill the 1/3s that you summon for your opponent. For the record, a lot of people still seem to miss that. They aren't your 1/3s. You're summoning 3 minions for your opponent. You have to kill those minions to then activate like a Twisting Nether style effect, and then you get your 12/12, right? So I think if you play this on turn 4, on curve, you're basically giving your opponent minions. You risk your opponent transforming those minions, shadow stepping those minions, so that they don't actually die. And if they don't die, the trigger never goes off. So if they get transformed, it's kaput. You don't get your 4/12.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's a risk.
Okay.
Also, so on curve, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of risk, right? You got to kind of, and you're giving them like, 3 minions. They get to attack you. They get to do things to those minions. So that's a downside. If you wait until like turn 8 and play it with, say, like a Hellfire, which seems like a pretty good fit, or any other AoE that does the same thing, you're basically spending 8 mana for a Twisting Nether that summons you a 12/12, but it takes 2 cards, which is not something control decks want to give up as cards in hand. They might, in many cases, just kind of rather have a Twisting Nether. 12/12s are great, but on turn 8 in a control
12/12s are Deathwing-esque without the get rid of your entire hand drawback.
I know. Oh, the Regis doesn't like 12/12s. I get it. But there's now 2 mana Shadow Word Death. There's like Zephyrus in every deck that's just gonna like, oh, big game hunter. Okay, cool. There's like the new Paladin Libra of Justice. Like, oh, it has 1 health. Sorry, bro. Like, I don't really think turn 8 at 12/12's that insane anymore, particularly when it takes 2 cards to get it. So, plus, if your opponent has more than if they have 5 or more minions when you play this, then you only summon 2 of the dudes. The 3rd one never gets summoned. It never dies. It never activates. So you can't even play this into big boards that are full of minions because it won't ever go off at all. So I just read through all these scenarios. I was like, oh, that's gonna be so awkward. And I played this at the summit, and it felt weird to play. It felt bad to play. Like, it felt good to play against because it just gave you all these minions and stuff. You just get to attack phase. So I don't know. Maybe I'm minimizing the value of a 12/12 in the late game. I think that's possible, but I just can't think of examples where that's great. I mean, Deathwing has been sort of okay on like 1 out of a million turns, but somebody talk.
That's really interesting because you're convincing me, because I first saw this and I was like, oh my god, what happens if you play it into like a full board? Do those just like die before they're summoned? Like, but the fact that like they have to spawn all 3 of them, and they have to die, and transforming doesn't count, like all of these conditions on it, which I think there should be a lot of conditions. Don't get me wrong, like you don't want a 4 mana 12/12 to be easy. So like I get that, but yeah, no, I'm on board. I'm with you, because this seems like a little too memey.
If Faceless Corruptor was like the one card that didn't exist, where you play this on 4 and then your opponent literally just has Faceless Corruptor they want to play anyway in most decks, it's like, well, shoot, I can't play it on curve. It's not like ever an on curve play, which is where it gets exciting, because on turn 5 a 12/12 that cleared the board's amazing. Yeah. As you stretch later and later to the game, I just don't think it's as compelling that it's worth giving up maybe like 2 slots in your deck. Plus, this is the argument I made. How many times have you played Hearthstone where you're like, you're on turn 4 and you're like, God, I need my Hellfire. Where is Hellfire? I have to get a Hellfire or I'm dead. And it's like, you're going to expect me to hold that Hellfire for another 4 turns to play it with Magtheridon with 2 dead cards in hand the whole time? I don't think we live in that Hearthstone world. I wish we did sometimes. Like, I'd love to have every deck be super greedy and have gigantic minions. That sounds really, really fun. But I know that Demon Hunter's going to be hitting me in the face the whole time and I got to play cards. So it gets there. Believe me, I wish I was wrong. I hope I'm wrong. It could be. Very likely to be. but I don't see it. Garrett, do you have any insights?
No, not really. I think I'm extremely skeptical of this card as well, and yet I think it is like off the charts on cool factor.
Cool. It's very cool.
Like it's one of these things. Yeah, it's something I have to. I always at some point we always hit this in card talk where it's just like, but it's just freaking cool, and I just want to take a moment to stop min-maxing like these cards and just respect the cool
Talk
factor.
about the coolness.
Yeah,
I put it in one of my decks I made today. I'll play it tomorrow at the Theory Crafting live stream. Shout out, come watch March 26th, if that's not tomorrow when you're listening to this. Maybe you missed it, but check out the YouTube videos. I'm playing it. I'm going to play it. I'm so excited to play it, but I don't think it'll succeed.
Yeah, we should also point out, thank you again, Celestalon in the chat room, that this cannot be randomly summoned nor transformed. So not like you can't like evolve into a 12/12 or a dormant that you have no way to awaken, but you can discover it. So you can get it in your hand.
Yeah, but then you would still have to play it and it would still be dormant.
You would have to play, but it can never come from random effects that involve summoning.
Yeah, there's no way to cheat out of 12. Like, dear, I hadn't even thought about that. Thank you so much, Team 5, for considering that. Thank you so freaking much, because Shaman's getting to evolve.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there's Reddit confirmation. Maybe Celestalon can help here, but I think the rule in general has changed for that. So anything that's dormant that doesn't automatically awaken cannot be evolved into. So like the darkness as well in wild format. But if it can awaken, if it has that awaken trigger like dormant for 2 turns, then it can be evolved into, I believe was the clarification. So some of the imprisoned minions still can be involved into because they can awaken eventually. So it's not like you're left with a totally useless minion.
Yeah.
Maybe double check.
Which I think that makes sense. I think that's
yeah, no, it's great change. Yeah. Really, really good change.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for stream the lag. Correct. It's literally just Magtheridon in the Darkness that are banned from in-play summon transform.
Okay, well, I guess that's functionally maybe the same thing, but
just Mag, just the Darkness.
I guess it was proposed as a rule, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. All right, Regis, I know you're strapped for time. We need to get you out of here. So I'm going to let you make a choice. Are you more excited about Maiev or Alar?
Maiev.
All right.
Alar's garbage.
Alar is terrible. I was like, I'm not 100% sure why Garrett put it in here other than just everyone wants the Ashes of Alar and runs that dungeon.
That is the only reason I put it in here. Only.
I have a feeling something's going to come along that breaks Alar. I feel like it's like almost suspiciously weak where it's like, maybe something's being planned, you know? So I'm not like giving up on the card by any means because I have a feeling something's planned. But right now it looks really bad. Maiev looks really good.
Celestalon looks hurt in the chat. As much as Tex can look injured, that's Celestalon in our chat room right now.
Like I said, I'm hopeful.
So Maiev Shadow Song, 4 mana, 4/3 legendary neutral minion with a battle cry that reads, choose a minion, it goes dormant for 2 turns. The flavor and yet also just card mechanics working in tandem with each other to make a beautiful legendary here.
Yeah, I like it. It's going to be good, I think. Just a stall, a sap, a silence. None of those really, but kind of all of those as well, just depending on what you need. But it turns out in Hearthstone, like just doing things for a couple turns is usually enough. Like that gets you to where you need to be, buys you the time, finds your removal, get through a taunt and just hit him in the face, whatever it is. I think she solves so many different problems.
Rogue and freeze effects have been proving this since the beginning of this game's life, and Maiev brings this very rogue-esque trick to anyone who wants to put this minion in their deck. And
so a question about dormant stuff. When it awakens, does it have summoning sickness or can it attack right away?
It can
Well, it has summoning sickness, but I believe with Maiev, the way this works, if you make it dormant for their first turn and then their second turn, it might awaken during your turn. and lose its
okay.
summoning sickness.
So 2 turns isn't 2 of their turns.
It's starting on your turn since you're playing.
Right.
So
that's 1, and then it's their turn, and then back to you. It's awake. So when it's back to them, it can attack.
I think
obviously.
so, but again, maybe Celesteline can confirm that. It might be 2 of their turns, but I think it should work. I don't remember playing this enough to say.
Celesteline says dormant ticks at start of owner's turn.
Oh, so it won't be able to attack then for that 3rd turn. That makes my even better.
Essentially has 3 turns
even
turned
better.
off. That's wild.
Yeah, that's even better. Then. Oh my gosh.
No, Garrett, it's standard.
But it's everything's wild, Jocelyn.
Both, yeah.
So technically, I am correct.
No, wait a minute. Who are you kidding? Every card has rush, so it's the same difference.
Oh wait,
yeah.
Hold on. Celestine's correcting me. So wait, like
Maev's owner or the dormant minions owner? I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna. If I misread it, that's the only way to misread that, right? Because there's only 2 potential owners, and I assumed it was the owner of the minion that was now made dormant.
The minion that got dormant. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Oh goodness.
Which does seem consistent with like some of the I guess adventure style stuff we've seen. Like we've had a lot of dormant in adventure mode runs and dungeon runs and such. That seems like that's how it works.
Yeah.
Like it's always your turn on. Regardless of who had like the first turn of the game or whatever, it's when it flips over that it ticks up, I think.
Okay, here we go. I play Maiev on Garrett's Murloc, and then end turn. It ticks up to 1 of 2. So the owner of the Murloc.
Right. And
then Garrett takes his turn and ends turn. Jocelyn takes her turn and ends turn, and then it ticks up to 2 of 2 and awakens.
Yeah, okay. So it's based off the Maiev owner.
So
the ticks happen based on the Maiev owner's turn. Okay, so
Got it. So it will be able to attack on the 3rd turn, but you will actually have a chance to react to the minion.
Yes, the minion is there to be interacted with because you can't do anything to it when it's dormant.
How am I misreading this? Celesteline saying no, the ticks are based on the Murloc's owner, but if you're
Murloc's owner,
ticks
so
up,
you.
Because
so at the start
it's
of
based
your
on the end
turn,
it's based on the end, so it's technically, but it's still
end of Maev's turn, start of your turn. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I just sorry, I was getting lost in minutia.
Yeah.
But
because it actually awakens on the 2nd tick, I guess, right? Technically.
Yeah.
So
it waits 2 ticks.
What would be a 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still.
I'm still not sure. Everybody.
It's 3 turn. Well, okay. So it can't attack.
I get
the
it. It
first
misses 2
turn.
turns
The
of
first
attacking.
turn is the first turn. It's uninteractable. It's dormant. The 2nd turn, it wakes up. So Garrett's 2nd turn, it wakes up. It exists and can be interacted with, but can't attack. The 3rd turn, it's able to attack. Yes. Assuming it's still alive, because you as the Maiev player have gotten a chance to potentially use some removal or attack into it, what have you. So it gives you a full turn of it being completely uninteractable on the board, and you as the Maiev player. And then the 2nd time, like that's when you can actually, it gives you a chance to do something about it before they have a chance to attack with it.
Yep.
It's kind of like 2 straight
super frozen
freezes.
Yeah, super frozen.
Freeze times 2. Yeah.
Obviously, take into account charge, rush, effects like that as well.
Yes.
But yes. Thank you, Celesteline, for explaining that to us like we were 5. We clearly needed it.
Yeah.
We're like 3.
Yeah.
I appreciate it very, very much.
We are experts. We are professionals at this.
And I also appreciate Regis, you coming back on the show. Thanks so much, man. I know you were strapped for time tonight.
Happy to be here.
So thanks for hanging out for a little over an hour. We kept you longer than we expected. So before you leave, where can everyone find you if they're not already familiar with your awesome content?
Whatever. Just Google like Regis YouTube or something and I'll pop up. Whatever. You guys know where I'm at. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all those fun places. Come hang out. We'll do, we got a theory crafting stream, March 26th, which is tomorrow right now. Of course, you might be listening to this to a different time, but going to play a lot of these cards basically like 10 days early or something, maybe almost 2 weeks early. So I'm going to get to experiment with some of these. I know not everybody loves theory crafting, but I think it's a really fun chance to see the sights and sounds. And we're not going to like solve the meta. Certainly not on my stream, at least. We're going to build terrible decks, but still get to experience and enjoy some of these cards early. And then, lots of videos on YouTube with all that stuff following up and more discussions and reviews and theories and all that stuff along the way too. So yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming back on, dude. Everyone go check out RegisKillbin on YouTube, on Twitch. And we'll catch you next time, dude. As like I said last time, open invitation. Anytime you feel like chatting Hearthstone even more than you already do, let us know. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye. Have a good one. All right. And now the overlay explodes, or does it? Because I was prepared and the tech didn't explode on me, which is absolutely freaking delightful. And with all of this in mind, Jocelyn, we still have the Year of the Phoenix to talk about. You still have a chance to tell me I was wrong, which we didn't even put in the notes, but I completely forgot about. There's a lot to do, but first we've got a couple of sponsors to thank today. We will see you on the other side.
We're going to take a quick break from the new expansion talk to thank today's sponsor, Quip Electric Toothbrushes. We have an expansion launch stream coming up soon, TM, and you know I need my teeth to sparkle just like the rest of me. To do that, I need to brush for 2 minutes twice a day and floss just like everyone else. No magical unicorn powers here. Quip's electric toothbrushes make this super easy for me by giving off sensitive sonic vibrations every 30 seconds to remind you when to switch sides for a full and even clean. Flossing is also important after your 2 minutes of brushing are up, which is why Quip has introduced their floss dispenser with pre-marked lengths to reduce waste while still ensuring clean teeth. Plus, Quip delivers a fresh brush head, floss, and toothpaste refills to your door every 3 months with free shipping, so your routine is always right. Join over 3 million healthy mouths to get Quip today, starting at $25. And if you go to getquip.com/tack right now, you'll get your first refill free. That's your first refill free at getquip.com/tack. We thank them for their support, so go check out Quip, the Good Habits Company.
Just want to take a quick minute to thank today's sponsor, Gabi. You can check them out over at gabi.com/TAC. One of my favorite things to geek out over that isn't video games is cars. Katie and I go to a lot of car shows and we spend, frankly, a little too much time taking care of our cars. Unfortunately, that does mean having to deal with insurance. If you own a car or a house, you know that shopping for insurance isn't exactly what most people would define as fun, but it doesn't have to take forever and you do not have to overpay. You can get a lower rate for the exact same coverage you already have with help from Gabi. That's what I did. Gabi automatically pulled my auto policy. All I had to do was log in with my Geico account, and Gabi showed me quotes from providers like Travelers, National General, and Progressive. All of this stuff is already pulled, and it compared coverage to coverage. Turns out Safeco will save me $218 with the exact same coverage. Gabi customers save $825 per year on average. So go check them out. Take 2 minutes right now to start saving on your car and homeowners insurance. Go to gabi.com/TAC. That's GABI.com/TAC. We thank Gabi for their support. Head on out there and support the companies that support us here on The Angry Chicken. And now we get to talk about the Year of the Phoenix. Phoenix. I need to get an echo effect on my mixer somehow, which I don't believe that's built in. I don't think it's possible.
I'm pretty sure I can do something. Wait, what happens when I press megaphone? No, wait. Robot?
Oh my God, there it is.
Robot Joss.
Yep, Robot Joss. But like intentional Robot Joss and not Skype is taking a shit Robo Joss.
This is my megaphone.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good. I need that. Kyle has one too and gets to have all those fun, ridiculous sound effects.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of things we wanted to talk about that wasn't just new cards. First of all, like we've got dates for like all the things that are coming. So last week we talked about the Priest rework. We talked about the Hall of Fame. We talked about Illidan coming to Battlegrounds. We talked about, and also made mention today about new and returning players getting free decks. And we talked about returning player missions. It's not the Demon Hunter prologue because that's coming later. But everything I just mentioned is coming on March 26th. Jocelyn, that's tomorrow.
Yeah, and so this is a really good time to shout out the fact that if you are looking to get your dust back for Hall of Fame stuff, you got to go make those cards tonight because this is all happening tomorrow morning. So get ready.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Elvix is all over it. Craft your Hall of Fame cards.
Yeah, you want tonight. If you were getting this episode like the morning before work, like on Thursday, it's too late. Or actually, I think you might, it depends on when it rolls over, but like go now. But we have dates for everything else too. The ranked revamp is coming in at the start of next season. So April 1st, we are not far away at all. I do believe we mentioned this last week, but it's worth repeating.
I think we did. Yeah.
If you want as many freaking bonus stars as you can possibly get for the first new season with this ranked revamp, you need to start ranking up now. Battlegrounds be damned. Get back the ladder. Don't dilly dally.
Battlegrounds are so fun, Garrett. And we're going to get Illidan tomorrow.
Can they? I hope. I've never hoped for there to be a technical issue, but I hope there's a technical issue with Illidan and Battlegrounds for the sake of my ladder rank. Please.
Yeah, I know. I keep going on and I do like a game or two and then I think, okay, I should play some more ladder, and then I lose to something disgusting and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to Battlegrounds.
It's just there. It's just there like, hey, are you feeling salty about that loss to the Mech Paladin? Or that in Big... I lost to him Big and Drew today. I can't remember the last time I lost to him Big and Drew, but they like got the nuts. And I was just like, man, I forgot how bad this feels. Like, but whatever, doesn't matter. It's anecdotal. And April 2nd, so the day after the ranked revamp goes live, Demon Hunter Prologue hits the game, so you can have your Demon Hunter done and unlocked for April 7th when rotation hits, when Demon Hunter is unlocked, and when Ashes of Outland launches. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it seems really soon. And I love that there is just so much stuff happening in the lead up to the expansion. It's not like we now have all the cards. We've seen all that. Like Regis said, there's going to be the theory crafting live stream stuff's happening tomorrow. Then we've got all of this stuff launching in the game. So we've got like the battleground stuff that you can get in, but the priest rework, which is really interesting that's coming before the expansion actually launches. So you get some time to familiarize with priest before you get the dump of the new expansion specific priest cards. So I think, this is going to be a really interesting time. And then like the ranked revamp and everything else, like there's going to be stuff happening. This isn't just like a 2-week waiting period that we're going to have between now and when the expansion happens. So I think it's a really exciting time in Hearthstone. And it's going to be interesting to try to split my time between all of the things that there are to do in Hearthstone right now.
And you like WoW. I like WoW. I also like Heroes of the Storm.
I love DBD. Like there's so many things. Everyone's doing stuff because a lot of people are at home right now. So, there's double experience in WoW. There's 1.5 as much experience in Dead by Daylight happening right now. So
I'm sorry. What is that a Blizzard game? We're
I'm
shills, Jocelyn. You have to remember how much money Blizzard totally sends our way, so that we're positive. Completely. That's definitely what happens. I can like Blizzard
things and other games too, and Behavior's a Canadian company. I gotta support my own, man.
Do you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, fine. Be proud of products coming out of your own country.
Dead by Daylight is super fun. Okay, I know I've talked about it for the last year now, but man, it's good. It's fun. It's scary. It's awesome.
I've played twice with you, and I just screamed like a little girl the whole time. It was.
That's part of why it's glorious.
Yep. It's going to be entertaining.
There's lots of stuff. Yeah. Sorry, go.
I was going to say, it's going to be entertaining when Katie brings a chair into the office to watch me play a video game. It's just like, oh, she knows I'm going to screech. She knows it. She knows it. She was just cracking up the whole time. There's just so much Hearthstone stuff coming. The priest rework is a big one. I know a lot of priest players are really concerned, and it's just I don't know. I think it's just too early to really tell. We didn't really highlight the new priest cards that were coming in, but there's a lot of minion buffing going on in priest.
Yeah.
But
not in a way that you think that you're gonna just in one turn die like you were before. Oh my God, why am I Divine Spirit? I was gonna say Divine Favor, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. Divine Spirit. Yeah, you don't feel as bad anymore. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it does. I mean, by comparison, it feels significantly less powerful as well, which I think is probably not helping the concern of priest players right now, because you're having these cards like Dragon Maw Overseer, 3 mana 2/2 in the new expansion that at the end of your turn give another friendly minion +2/+2. I mean, that's a powerful minion buffing effect, but it is of itself is a 3 mana 2/2. It needs to have another minion on board for you to get value out of that effect, and the minion itself is not particularly great, and it cannot buff itself. But like that's not the only thing. There's a new spell called Apotheosis, a 3 mana spell for priest that gives a minion +2/+3 and lifesteal. Like that's a pretty solid buff for your 3 mana with the lifesteal on top of that. And this is kind of peppered around. Also, the one I'm the most excited about is Psych Split, which is 5 mana priest spell. Give a minion +1/+2, summon a copy of it.
That one's really interesting. And again, we're talking about new expansion cards. We're not talking about rework cards.
We talked about
the rework cards last week. So these are slightly different. But you're right. They're kind of building priest into this. It's like priests used to have really big like power spiky turns, right? You'd have your cloning gallery plays or like your big res plays, and those would spike up your power level like crazy. But a lot of your other turns were really low. And this kind of rework and these new expansion cards make priests like level out a little bit more, or at least that's kind of how I'm thinking they're going to play, a little bit more tempo-y. And, you know, instead of like do nothing, power spike, do nothing, power spike, it's just going to be kind of like do something. It might not be up here, but it's, you know, it's you're doing something the whole way along. And I think once we get our hands on it, once we can actually play with it, I think this might be a more fun and interesting way to play with the class, or at least it aligns with how I like to play a little bit more. I mean, I know in the past I really liked like Spiteful Priest. That's probably my favorite one of all time, which definitely had the big power spike turns, but you were also kind of doing stuff the whole way along. And Dragon Priest, which is also another favorite of mine, is one again where you were kind of like doing stuff the whole way along instead of Combo Priest, which I've never enjoyed. It's not my favorite way to play. So I think I like these priest changes, but I completely understand why a lot of other people probably just are not big fans.
Well, especially I think if you've been playing priest in like the last year and change.
Yeah.
And those are the players that we're going to be hearing from, because they're the ones that are in it right now, that are bought into priest, and that's where their passion lies. So it makes a lot of sense to me. And like, I don't want to discount them. It's just that like, I'm not ready to make a call, because as someone who made a very strong statement on last week's episode that turned out to be the wrongest I've ever been on anything in the history of Hearthstone predictions, I'm a little...
And I was right.
Based on no actual facts or opinion, just feeling. But yeah, I've gotten so many tweets. I might be a little
bruised, salty,
just a little bit. But actually, it was based entirely on opinion. I don't know why I said, yeah, you did. You were right, based entirely on opinion and not fact. Freaking, it's the start of a new standard year. We're losing so many cards. We're getting a big injection of new cards, more new cards than for priest than anyone else. I guess Demon Hunter, but that doesn't count. Demon Hunter didn't exist before. So like, there's just a lot up in the air. And like, listen, I'm with Regis. There's a lot of Galacron going on, and it's not going away anytime soon. So if anything, that's where I stand the most concerned for priest's prowess, because this all does seem a little on the slow side. But I
think that there's now a whole lot more cards in priest, because Galacron was the weakest, like the priest Galacron was the weakest of all of them, right? And now I feel like with the addition of this expansion and some of the changes, there's less priest cards in the pool that I'm going to feel bad if I get from Galacron. So I actually think that there might be a cool, just tempo-y Galakron priest that doesn't feel bad about generating priest cards, because no matter what, they're going to be usable. They're not going to feel like part of a combo that you can't really make use of. They're not going to feel like shadow form. It's like, well, excuse me, I don't want to do that. Right. So I think that this actually probably feels better. Like, just in general, restoring 3 health and discovering a spell for 1 mana, that's probably something I want to do. Like, that feels pretty good. Like you said, like the Psych Spirit or Split or whatever, or Psyche Split, whatever, that card, that's another one that just kind of feels good if you're playing minions. Yay. So I think there's a little bit less niche cards within Priest. So maybe Galakron Priest isn't as bad as it used to be, because there's just some pretty decent stuff that doesn't rely on being part of a bigger build in order to function.
Yeah. I don't have a strong feeling whether it's going to be good or bad. But I can say that I just like the direction, that if this is the direction that Priest is heading, I am more interested in it, because I have very similar feelings to you. Spiteful Priest, Dragon Priest were my 2 favorite Priest decks, because I got to have fun and interact along the way, as opposed to trying to just assemble one big turn.
Or build a giant board of just straight up taunts and res them 8,000 times.
I did enjoy that for a while. For a while. I will admit.
I was kind of on the fence with that one. I enjoyed it a little bit, but then I was kind of like, I don't really love not really having my own win condition outside of just don't die. It's like, bore your opponent to death. You win.
It can be fun for a little while, but it eventually kind of wore out its welcome with me anyway. I got a little on the board side.
I think everyone is on the Res Priest was here long enough bandwagon.
Yes. And then before we take some emails and hear from our listeners, Jocelyn, the floor is yours for your I told you so.
I don't want to rub it in. I mean, Twitter has rubbed it in a lot, but if you guys have somehow missed it, Battlegrounds, we talked about last week, the changes that came in. There was a lot of stuff that kind of flew under the radar with 16.6 that basically didn't even get talked about. And one of the changes was to Millhouse Mana Storm, and he is, according to HS Replay, which now has their Battleground tool live for everybody. So if you've somehow missed this, you can go to HS Replay right now and get all the cool information that I was talking about a couple weeks ago. It's live for everybody, so go and check it out. Millhouse has just an awesome win rate. He is top of the pile now. That 1 extra gold at the beginning of the game kind of just put him head and shoulders above everybody else. He went from dead last to very first. So yeah, good job, Millhouse. You finally arrived.
Yeah, at no point did it cross my mind that the reason Millhouse struggled so much is that he was perpetually behind a Tavern tier. Mm-hmm. And in my defense, I didn't see it cross in anyone else's mind either. So yeah, I've gotten so many replies from people like, hey, Gary, you see Millhouse's win rate? And I'm like, all anyone could tell me was that Millhouse is better than he seemed, but you couldn't tell me why or show me like results. So that's why I was so grumpy about it. But yeah, hell, you want to know? You want to know what like the most bizarre salt in my wound is right now?
What?
My most recent first place was with Millhouse. As of recording this episode, last first place placement, Millhouse. I also had 2 really poor games with him. But I will be the first to admit that those were some of the most booty rolls I've ever seen in Battlegrounds. So I can't really fault Millhouse for that one. So yeah, I am. Yeah, we really, frankly, just didn't really have time for a Battleground segment this week, but I did want to bring it up because holy crap, I've gotten so many replies. So here it is.
Yeah. So guys, Garrett knows
I was wrong.
It's fine. You can stop now.
May I defend myself one more time though?
Sure.
I said Deathwing's nerf wouldn't affect him that much.
Which it didn't. It brought him down more in line with everybody else, because he was one that was way far ahead, and now he's, within a point or two of everybody. So I think it brought him in line where he needed to be without totally nerfing him into the ground. So I think it was good. But I still do stand by just being sick of Rat Pack, because when he gets Rat Pack, it's basically, it swings matches for or against him. So either you're Deathwing and you draft him, or like draft a Rat Pack, or you're somebody else with Deathwing in a lobby, and then you're drafting it, because it's just, it's like hate drafting with no downside. You know how much you talked me out of hate drafting, period. Well, drafting Rat Pack with a Deathwing in your lobby, it accomplishes both. It's just an objectively good minion, and also you're kind of hate drafting against him. So there's no downside to grabbing a Rat Pack.
It's more that it's just like one of the best options at that tier, and it just happens.
That's what I mean. Like it's so good, and then you're also hard countering a hero while you're at it. So yeah.
It's that is certainly the case. But overall,
just go away now.
I gotta say, overall, the balance of the heroes, I think, is in a pretty damn good place. Millhouse rocketed to the top, but he is still pretty close to the average placement of the top 10. There's a pretty decent spread between heroes, all the way up. There is a bit of a divide between Millhouse and Stormu, but we're talking 0.2. It's not
of a placement point.
Yeah, so overall, I think it's really good. I've seen plenty of Millhouses not get in the top 4. I myself have piloted a Millhouse to not the top 4. Proud, and I was trying.
And I think too, it has a lot to do with the removals as well. Taking some of those lower heroes out, the Patches and the Ragnaroses of the world, as well as buffing Millhouse, kind of brought the bottom up while bringing the top down at the same time. So there are less times when I actually feel oh man, I'm totally screwed. Even when I get Shutterwalk, there's ways to make him work. I think the worst one, and I'm not surprised by this at all, is Murloc dude. And now you're kind of seeing Jiraxis and Murloc guy, Fungal Mancer, Flurgle.
Flurgle. How can you not want to say Flurgle as much as you can possibly give yourself the excuse to say Flurgle?
Yeah, exactly. And even, Ysera, she's technically not in HS replays at tier 4, but, anyone that kind of makes you push a certain set of minions has a certain tribe of minions has a lower win rate, which I think is pretty much to be expected, right? Anything that's going to kind of pigeonhole you too much at the start. I would say I'm actually, if anything, surprised Alexstrasza is a little bit higher, right? Because she's very much discover the 2 dragons at tier 5. I'm surprised that she isn't a lot lower, because she kind of sends you down that dragon rabbit hole, the dragon rabbit hole. Hang on, I'm mixing my animals here.
Well, there's dragon. There's
the dragon path.
Yeah,
that might be better.
There's a dragon that plays in. There's 2 dragons that play into the Divine Shield comp, which is one of the most popular comps to put together right now. There's a dragon that just gives you minions from your previous opponent's warband. There's plenty of dragons that you can discover through Alexstrasza that plays
aren't
into
necessarily
non-dragon
synergistic.
Comps. Yeah, Alexstrasza doesn't trick you into going dragons, and I think we've learned that lesson pretty quickly as a community. So that's why I think Alexstrasza has risen above AFK, which I think is worth mentioning. And yes, AFK not as strong as she used to be with demon nerfs, so on and so forth. We've been there, talked about it enough. But still a solid hero, because Coldblood Guardian's still in the game, and AFK has a really good chance of finding one.
And what's actually really interesting here is that they have the same average placement, but if you look at their super cool placement graphs on the right-hand side, which is something I'm not even 100% sure I talked about when I was talking about this new tool, but it's basically Alex is first or last, and then she gets less likely to have a middling placement, whereas AFK less likely to be first or last. She's the opposite curve, but she's more likely to come around the middle of the pack now. So there's some really interesting insights that you can get by looking at this data. So I highly recommend people go and check it out when you're picking your next hero in Battlegrounds.
Toki is so consistent. It is hilarious.
Yeah, Toki's basically just got a flat graph. Yeah. You have just as much chance of becoming first, fourth, or last. Doesn't matter.
And Elise, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And Finley as well. All of my Finley games have given me booty options, and I'm so salty about it. Every time I go up against a Finley, he's like a Nosdormu or a Millhouse, and I'm like, and every time I go against, I'm like, I'm a Sarah. Ooh, go me. But yeah, still enjoying it. I'm the closest to a little burnout with Battlegrounds as I think I've been since they've added the mode. I'd like to see Juggler, Rat Pack, and even Cobalt Guardian addressed. Maybe taken away for a while, maybe nerfed, like put up to higher tavern tiers, something of that nature. Do something with those three because I'm just a little bored by them at this point.
Well, they've been in since the start, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't really seen any changes. They've been around a long time. Like the whole idea of Battlegrounds is that it's this ever evolving, constantly changing mode, which it needs to be in order to stay fresh because of the random nature of it, right? So I think that hopefully we'll see some stuff soon. Why are you laughing? What have I done?
It's gonna take too much. I'm sorry. Too much explanation to explain it. There's that meme with the Ziploc bags, but it's not Ziploc bags. It says "Stay Fresh Cheese Bags," and the meme underneath says, "I found what I say to my coworkers now when I leave." It's one of my favorites. Our friends and I, it's a joke. It's like an in joke. We say that to each other now when we leave parties. Stay fresh cheese bags. So when you said stay fresh, all I could think of was cheese bags, and it made me giggle. I'm sorry. I'm a human being.
I have literally never seen that. I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's one of my favorite things. Stay fresh cheese bags. Let's
take some emails.
Let's take some emails. Let's do that indeed and get ourselves out of me having to over-explain an in-joke within my group of friends.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. If you're supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC, you can skip the inbox entirely, drop a message in the patron Discord, and hell, sometimes we're there in real time. We can just chat, we can talk back and forth, we can have a dialogue. It's wonderful. Go check it out. Toad Ogre. Should have read his name ahead of time. It's amazing. Amazing name.
I love it when you don't. It's so much better.
It's so good. And I've read this email. I don't know why I glossed over the name. Toad Ogre writes, in reviewing the Priest rework, do you think is it enough to take the class out of its historically weak position? If not, what might make it so? I think at the root of Priest's problem is its weak hero power. I'd like to see Hearthstone take Priest's hero power cost to 1. Thank you, Demon Hunters. That change alone could give Priest more flexibility and viability. What are your thoughts? In case it is not obvious, I am a longtime Priest player and am not impressed with the changes. Well, Jocelyn, it didn't take long, and I didn't think it was going to. With the dawn of Demon Hunter's 1 mana hero power, here is our first email asking that another class's hero power be brought to 1 mana.
It's a whole new world, Garrett.
It is. And I frankly, I know I'm riffing on it, and I might sound like I'm teasing Toad Ogre a little bit here. But if any hero power, I think, has an honest argument for costing 1 mana, I think it's Priest.
Yeah, I am completely in agreement here. I think Priest hero power has been traditionally weaker, and I think it stems a lot from just the idea that you can never heal past, like you can't buff your own health the way that you can with like druids or with warriors. Like your health doesn't ever go above your max, right? So they've always had this cap that other like healing type effect classes don't have. And I think that that's enough. Like there's also the argument to be made that you can't armor up a minion, but I just think healing is inherently weaker, and I don't think it would necessarily break Priest if they were one of the classes to receive a hero power revamp, like a change in the cost. Now that we have that kind of on the table, I'm a little bit surprised that wasn't part of the entire change to Priest, like part of the rework. If they weren't like, hey, Demon Hunters, they do this, it costs 1, and although also we're doing Priest at the same time, but maybe they're seeing how all the card changes and just the philosophy change around Priest, how that works out before they start messing with the hero power. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is on the table. Or heal 3. Yeah, heal more as well, maybe. But then there's still the problem of not being able to go over the maximum, whether that is minion health or whether that is the priest face. That's the heal 3, unless it was like heal 2 or buff 2, you know, if you're talking about targeting minions, like, but then you're getting complicated. So
I don't think it's a big deal that it can't overheal your face. If it's like, oh no, I'm at 30 health, like you're at 30 health.
Yeah, but then it's like you basically have nothing to do with your hero power that turn. Like if I'm a hunter or if I'm a warrior, I can do damage to like 2 damage to my opponent's face. That is always available to me regardless. If I'm a warrior, I can always increase my health by 2. There is never a turn aside from turn 1 when I don't have enough mana to cast it. But like my hero power is never turned off. Like priests, if they're at full health and they have no injured minions, then their hero power is effectively useless, and there isn't anybody else. I guess maybe Warlock, when they're at 2 health or less, their hero
2
power
health
is
or
turned
less,
off,
or 10 cards in hand. Shaman is useless if the 7 mana, or if there's 7 minions on board, and also it's totems.
Or
it's
if they have all 4. I
was going to argue it's arguably useless all the time.
Useful, but they're bodies still, right?
They are still bodies. They are still bodies. So there are other hero powers that are useless, and you could probably come up with a very specific scenario for almost any hero power where it would be made useless. Mage can also.
But I think priest scenario though comes up a whole lot more often than the other classes.
Yes, you are absolutely correct, and 100%. But with divine spirit gone,
technically still in the game, right?
Wild.
Like they didn't delete it.
With divine spirit to wild.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot more minion buffing going on, which means there's a lot more use for hero powering.
For healing.
Because if they have more health, a lot more likely they're going to survive damage, but still be damaged and need to be healed. So there's always that. It's just that hasn't worked out in the history of Hearthstone. Like just buffing minions hasn't really ever been good enough for priest. So I share the hesitation. But it's how I want them to work. So I hope they can find a power level. Like I hope they find a spot on the dial where those buffs are powerful enough that it does work. But no, TLDR, I agree with you, Toto. I think it should be a consideration. I'm not here saying they should do it, but I think they should consider it if they're continuing to have issues with priests, because I agree with you. You bring up some really good points.
Yeah, and I think that it might just be a case of they didn't want to play with too many things at once, you know, like change a couple of little things, see how that shakes out. If it's not enough, this is probably on the table, if I had to guess. Yeah.
Who's our second question and final bit of the show from?
This comes to us from Bionar, who says, I have a battleground specific question. How do you make Murlocs work? My MMR bounces between about 5 to 5.5k, and my best results normally come when I get a good juggler demon build or kobolds and mechs, occasionally beast, but not so much recently. Whenever I get offered lots of early Murlocs and take them, I never seem to be able to transition through the mid game. The Cold Light Seers, Toxfins, and the Discoverer Murloc dude are never offered, and I die in a ditch. What am I doing wrong? Should I be leveling more quickly or more slowly? I'd love to know what Murloc strategies people find work for them. So I put this question in because I know, Garrett, this is something that you were kind of like talking about, and I'm wondering if you've ever kind of broken the code of how to make Murlocs work other than just, you know, get a Megasaur, like survive long enough and then get a Megasaur.
You really want to get a Bran, even more than a Megasaur, in my opinion, because you're going to be a lot more consistent. I don't believe in forcing early Murlocs. I think that's a part of the issue. Like on average, your early game performance in Battlegrounds is going to just go so much freaking smoother if you just draft the most powerful minions that are offered to you, and for the love of God, find a spawn on Azoth. Because the statistics for winning rounds early game with a spawn and Azoth on board is overwhelming. But beyond that, it's freaking tricky. It's something I'm studying up on right now, and frankly, I don't have a good play-by-play for you. But I think I'm oh God, screw it. I'm gonna make another prediction. I think we're going to see Flurgle start to rise because the way to play, it's difficult to play Flurgle. Please, for the love of God, do not tweet me saying Flurgle is busted, and then give me a screenshot with your warband with Bran in it. If you found Bran as Flurgle, congratulations. Of course you won. But there's a lot of tricks. It's kind of like Beast. You need to do. I find a lot more success transitioning into Murlocs late when I have ways to like cheat into triples, which you can do with Bran, even if you're not Flurgle, by the way, through the Tidehunter. You find 2 Tidehunters and you've got a Bran on board. You have to do a lot of trickery and have to have APM of a StarCraft player, but you sell most of your board so you have enough room to double
really
Battlecry out for 3. Even if you don't get all 4 tokens spawned from the double Battlecry, you can get make enough room that you get 3, so you get a golden token, and then you just keep goldening and discovering and selling the golden back and finding more Tidehunters and so on and so forth. So yeah, thank you, Tombstone. Bran makes it wait. He says I won without Bran. Yeah, it can be done on Flurgle, absolutely, and that's why I want to hear from you if you're winning with Flurgle without Bran, because it's very obvious kind of how you win with Murlocs on Flurgle with Bran. Like, of course, you're finding all the Murlocs. It's very easy for you, but it's very much, in my opinion, a late to mid game to late game transition to go Murlocs. Right now, my favorite thing is to have like a Murloc, amalgam style, in my warband. And it's working pretty well because I'm just treating it like an amalgam, because I can go poisonous, and it makes the like soft menagerie buffers so much better when you have a Murloc in your band.
Yeah, I generally find that first of all, I'm finding lots of menagerie minions because they're the kind of things that get bought, used, and sold back, which means that there's always a lot of them in the pool because nobody's really hanging on to those minions to actually build on them as part of a comp, which means that you find a lot of them and you can make a lot better use of them because they buff dragons and beasts as well, right? So if you're doing either one of those things and hanging on to one Murloc for poisonous late game, then you're getting like twice the buffs out of those minions, right? And especially if you've managed to find a Bran, or if you are Shutterwalk, then you're just getting so much value out of that. So many values.
So many values.
You're getting so many values, you guys. So many values.
Yeah, and so many wonderful sentences by Jocelyn.
Yeah, it's been another 2-hour episode, you guys. So this is when it starts to break down.
You're definitely not alone. I've been trying to siphon as many stats from HS Replay, now having their Battleground stuff out, as I possibly can. And Murlocs has the lowest average placement of any like traditional composition in the game. I think it is the most difficult one to pull off. I think you actually need to learn how to draft it. It is literally my current homework, is to study up on how to actually consistently pull off Murlocs and know the different scenarios in which it's time to pull the trigger. Bran is the most obvious one in my mind. But there's other things that pop up as well. So, but you get those games where like that's all Bob's throwing at you early game, and you kind of got to make it work. And in those cases, I find Murkai tends to go the furthest, because just that you can stack that health. It's like the only early game Murloc with respectable health. And so try and pinpoint that. If you find yourself in one of these games where Bob is just pushing Murlocs on you, like, hey friend, you want Murlocs? I know you don't. You want that spawn of N'Zoth. But here's more Murlocs. Welcome to turn 4. More Murlocs.
There's always Murlocs, I find. Like every single one of my taverns has at least one Murloc. Every refresh, all the time.
Flurgle cuts down on it a little bit if there's a Flurgle in the game, but not enough. Obviously, you're gonna still run into them, but it's fine. Tidehunter's still like the best tier 1 minion to buy, but you're buying it for your economy. You're buying it to get your board as large as fast as you can get to it, so you attack first, and so you have more bodies on board for when you do find that spawn on N'Zoth as like the standard early game strategy. You're not getting it because you're just going to start slamming Murlocs.
Yeah.
So it's more of you're trying to play like the average power game, and you're just trying to eke out as much power as possible to just have a little more attack or a little more health to just like out breakpoint your opponent in those early turns. So don't just die for Murlocs. And if you find yourself in that situation, cool, but don't force it early. Definitely don't force it early. That's about the only concrete advice I can give you right now. And find Bran every game. So
get Bran, go Murlocs, win. Got it.
Clearly.
Obviously.
Clearly. All I'd ever do now is find Bran when I go full mech and I never find another leaper for the rest of the game and cry. That's my current Bran experience. So that brings us to the end of the episode. Keep the emails coming, everybody. tacpodcast@gmail.com. And also join the Discord by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/TAC. Speaking of our patrons, thank you so very much to our producers, Declan H and Cheesy Bob. We really appreciate the support. And thank you again to all of our patrons. It's crazy right now, and it means the world to us that you are still supporting the Angry Chicken. So thank you very, very much. It always means a lot, but like at times like this, it really makes me stop and like take stock. And it's like, God, like this support, like it means a lot to me. And so thank you. I will stop getting mushy now. Follow the show on Twitter @TAC Podcast. Don't forget, we do have 7 standard pre-purchase bundles for Ashes of Outland to give away. Go to the post for this episode 358, to find our Gleam link. And if you're already signed up with Gleam, you can enter with your Twitch account. You can follow Amove on Twitch, follow Joss on Twitch. You get bonuses for subscribing to us on Twitch, or you can follow all 3 of the Twitter accounts, the Angry Chicken account, or Joss Plays, or Garrett Art on Twitter. Those all give you an entry into the giveaway. We'll be dishing those out in 5 days' time. Well, probably 6 days. It ends on the 30th. We'll get them divvied out the next day. So other than that, definitely go check out and support our guest from the top of today's show, RegisKillbin. You can find him at RegisKillbin on Twitter, on YouTube, and at twitch.tv. I'm legitimately a fan. Like, I don't watch like a lot of other people's Hearthstone content because I'm too busy doing Angry Chicken. But I always try to eke out a little time to watch what Regis is up to. I just really dig his personality. If you can't tell, he's a pretty damn good fit here. So if you like our content and you haven't watched his, I think you're going to like it. So go support Regis wherever you can find him. Joss, when you're not doing Angry Chicken, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. You can also go and check out the Gamers Inn if you are into more general gaming stuff like our random mid-show chat about DBD. But yeah, we're playing a lot of stuff over there. Animal Crossing, not so much Doom, but Doom is definitely on the plate. So yeah, go and check out the Gamers Inn for all your general gaming needs.
The Doom plate. I always wait until, the family's over to take out those plates. Those are the nice plates. You want to serve your family on satanic dinnerware. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art, amove.tv for this podcast and many others like it. Into the Nexus still coming at you strong. We're going to be joined by McIntyre tomorrow. If you want to hear from an ex-pro Heroes of the Storm player who's also doing a lot of work in the Heroes of the Storm community over on Heroes Hearth. I'm really stoked to have him on the show. You should also check out WoW Killer. Just go to amove.tv. Let's talk about Star Wars is back. Where my Star Wars starts at. I don't know why I'm whispering.
It got a little weird.
It's like everybody likes Star Wars. At least everyone used to like Star Wars. Now everyone hates Star Wars. It's fun to hate on, I guess, but doesn't matter. That's going to wrap it up for the show. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Things are in flux right now. Times could change. That's why you should follow TAC Podcast on Twitter. But that's what we're aiming for. And until then, job's done.
Job's done.